Awesome. Well, good afternoon. I am so excited to be with you to continue on with what we were talking about last week. So this is Get Ready to Downsize Part 2. And we're going to take what we learned and then continue and jump into some specific details that I think are going to help you with your decision making. But before we begin, just in case you were not here last week, we will spend a little bit of time reviewing what we covered. And I want you to stay tuned till the end of our presentation because we have a special summer giveaway. And you're really going to want to take part in that. It's exciting. So that's where we're going to begin by just saying, here I am. This is me in a better hair and makeup day. But my name is Sharon Parento, and I am a downsizing specialist in the GTA. I really focus on helping those who are 55 and older, who've lived in their homes a long time, maybe 20, 30, even 40 years or more. And we help them see the potential and the possibilities that downsizing can bring. We used to do all of this in person at community centers, rec centers, senior centers, libraries. But of course, with Zoom, we've had to make sure that everything that we offer for our clients and our would-be clients is on digital format. So thank you for joining this online workshop today. And just like a workshop, we even have a workbook that we can send you at the end of this. It's going to help you keep track. But in the meantime, feel free to take notes and we welcome your questions. Okay, so let's get going. We started last week with identifying some of the motivations that I commonly hear with my downsizing clients. We also looked at the things that have prevented people in the past from downsizing. And really, in order to get over those humps, we need a vision of how our future can actually be bigger than our past. A lot of us have noticed during our almost 2 years of COVID shutdown that our homes are just not satisfying the itch to do other things in life, travel, visit family. And we know we all have a lot of money tied up in this bricks and mortar, but it's not really helping our lifestyle. So we want to show you what downsizing can do. And now we're going to get into more particulars, and we're going to drill down, as they say, and start trying to establish a timeline. And I have to tell you that my agenda here is not to promote any particular outcome. It's simply to provide you with up-to-date, relevant information so that when the time is right for you, as you see fit, you can know kind of where you're heading. And of course, another thing COVID has taught us is that we hold all of our plans rather loosely, right? And this is always subject to revision, but at least you're going to know the questions you should be asking yourself. Is now the right time? And what about timing the market? And what are some of the property options? I have a few that I bet you have not yet considered. So let's get going. And again, normally we do these things interactively. So we really do want to make sure that your questions are answered. And whether that's inside this digital workshop format or by email or text, we're here for you, okay? So we'll make sure that at the end you have an opportunity. So when we started this workshop series, people came to us and they realized that their house had become a burden, or they anticipated the time when their house would become a burden. And sometimes that's from the personal experience of having to deal with an elderly parent, or God forbid, an estate sale. And you just realize that as time marches on, making significant life changes is more and more difficult. I find that we just don't have the resilience to stress. Perhaps it's the physical labor of packing up and moving that feels overwhelming, or even just the emotional upheaval of leaving a home that you've lived in for 40 years. I'm here to tell you that we have encountered all of those scenarios and much, much more. And I'm going to suggest that making a decision ahead of time of what your downsizing plan looks like is really to be celebrated here. That is the most important thing you can do to ensure that you are the architect of your future and not circumstance, not poor health or finances or mobility issues. If you know what you want ahead of having to make that decision in a crisis, then you are going to be far happier in the long run. So it's a truth that everyone will downsize eventually. And I want you to be calling the shots and not those other circumstances that create crisis, because we know that we don't make the best decisions during a crisis. So having a plan and making a proactive roadmap for yourself is going to ultimately be better for you in the end. So congratulations on being here and joining us and deciding to decide. So we touched on this quite a bit last week, and so I really just want to give you the high level review of this, is that when we're thinking about what is motivating us to downsize, what are the drivers, we often can look in 4 broad categories. Maybe, like a lot of people I encounter, your concern is relational. Now, this could be that your kids are out of town because that's where they can afford to buy, and you want to pull up stakes and be closer to them. Or conversely, maybe you have all of your deep social connections and meaningful roots in this community that you're watching from, and you know that when you do downsize, you don't want to move out and start all over again. All fair. There's no right or wrong here. It's just what's important to you. So you can see that those 2 different scenarios would, from a real estate perspective, result in very different decisions. Now, this is another possible motivation. I see this in the clients that are, on the earlier side of retirement, where they are done with suburban living. And what they really want is to live down in the entertainment district and go to shows and restaurants, or maybe they want to spend part of the year out of our tough Canadian winters. Whatever it is, they want to reduce their household size, their property size, so that they can have a brand new type of experience. Then there's the people for whom this is simply a practical, pragmatic consideration. They're sitting in 2,500 or 3,000 square feet, and they're really only using a couple of rooms, the bedroom, the kitchen, the family room. So they just add it up in their head and they think, wow, this is just not the best use of this equity. We could do so many other more interesting, perhaps even more important things than holding on to a family house, just in essence to warehouse our stuff, right? So then there are the people that I encounter for whom this has become a critical decision. And now they have health, they have mobility, they have financial considerations, whatever it is. And it's not a matter of whether they move, it's when they move. And really the clock is ticking. So the interesting thing here is that each one of these kind of broad categories of what might be motivating you to downsize has an implied timeline. We already mentioned that the critical situation for people is something that has to get done as soon as possible, or even sooner than later, where the other options that are motivating you, there isn't the same sense of urgency. It's really about lining things up so that you feel comfortable with the decision you're making and you understand where you're going. So we're going to help you with that. We mentioned that there are some common obstacles to people downsizing. A lot of it has to do with stuff. I'm going to tell you that this is the most common reason, in air quotes, that I hear why people have not yet downsized, because they just cannot face their basement or their garage or the craft room, or they just realize they have far too much stuff. And we actually have an entire webinar, an entire online workshop devoted to dealing with decluttering, because it is so common, it is so prevalent. We acquire and then we're looking to, get rid of the excess, the surplus. So we brainstormed a lot of those kinds of typical obstacles, whether it is dealing with stuff or maybe even an uncooperative partner. These are all things we run into a lot, and we had a whole long list. And when you actually refute what you are telling yourself, then you can see that it's not quite as daunting as you might have initially thought, especially when you think of what you can gain at the end of this process. We talked a lot about creating a vision statement, like why you are downsizing, combined with the parameters that are important to you. Things like you would like to have more time, you would like to have maybe more disposable income to improve your quality of retirement life, or you'd like to be able to leave the house and go pursue other interests and passions. So all of these things can be achieved through downsizing when it's part of a larger life plan. And that's really what we had here presented, was our mission statement for downsizing, is that at the end of this process of downsizing, I or we will have fewer or less blank. Is that possessions? Is that troubles? Is that bills? What is it? What is it that you are wanting less of in your future, while having more freedom, money, time, travel opportunity? I don't know. And then also while maintaining blank. Now, that is often lifestyle or independence or decision making. Like, there's just a lot of things that you could personalize this mission statement and apply it to your own situation. Again, there isn't a right or wrong. It is what works for you and the goals you are yet to achieve for yourself. That's the only thing that matters. So when we talk about taking this kind of abstract notion that one day we will downsize, and we want to make sure that we have money, that we're close to the kids, and that we've freed up ourselves from the responsibility of snow shoveling and grass cutting and all of those kind of things. The next phase in developing your action plan is to decide if now is the right time for you, or is this something that you will attend to more in the future? Remembering that at some point, the decision making will be taken from you. And that's nothing that any of us wants. We want to be steering our own course. We want to be the captains of our own ship. So it's important that you act before those other things intrude and take away your decision making, like health, like mobility, like finances. So these are the things that could possibly be the triggers in your decision. In other words, when to kind of pull the plug on the bigger family house, and you just get to a point where financially you can't afford to stay there, or you can't afford the care for yourself or your spouse that you really would like, or you would just like to invest the money in order to share it amongst your family in a way that makes the most sense for tax purposes and estate planning. So all of that. Maybe it's that you have come to the end of wanting to maintain the yard or the house in general, and you would like a turnkey option where you didn't have to worry about those things. Or maybe it's just, you're done in the house you're in and it's time for a change. And maybe the trigger for your change is a mobility issue where you don't feel safe in your house and you don't feel like you can really do the stairs. Unfortunately, I have to say, I have had clients whose dining room ends up turning into a bedroom because they don't do the stairs anymore. And, that seems to me a little late. Perhaps if they had seen those issues starting to build for themselves, they would have been able to make the decision while it was still much, much easier on them, emotionally, physically, even financially. So what is the right time? Well, first of all, you have to decide for yourself, just to break it down even further, how do you want to downsize? Now, in my own parents' case, they did A, where they had a big house, they went to a smaller house, and then they went to an even smaller bungalow. And I understand that when the time comes, it will probably be a condo apartment, and then maybe even a retirement community, or eventually into assisted living. So it is phases of independence and mobility and autonomy that are changing over time. Or you might decide for yourself that you just want to skip the middle and go right to a place where you can age in place. You might even decide that you want to stay in the home that you're in currently and adapt it for long-term living, whether that's building a nanny suite so that you could have live-in care, or adapting so that it is mobility friendly. Perhaps it could be installing a washroom that has a shower on a main floor. Like, there's just a lot of considerations. And you don't have to sell your house in order to downsize. It could be a matter of adapting your living right now to your changing, evolving circumstances. So that's the first question. How do I want to do it? Do I want to go from big to something more manageable right away? Or do I see this as a more incremental process because I'm not quite ready for the condo apartment? In which case, I highly recommend townhouses, but that's another conversation. Now, what about the when? Do you see this as happening for yourself in less than a year? Well, then that's a fairly short-term project in real estate terms. So you have some things you want to get going on. Mostly it has to do with sorting, decluttering, making preparations. So we have a plan for you that can help you get going on that as a homeowner, getting ready to sell. So the next thing could be 12 to 24 months. And I'm going to tell you that's the most frequent time that I encounter my future clients. They come to me 12 to 24 months ahead of time, and they're not quite sure when they're going, but they know they've got to start now in preparation. So you can be making decisions and planning and then adjusting, course correcting as you get closer to the time. And then 24 months and beyond. Now, this is interesting, and it kind of applies to everything. What is it 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or whatever it is, that is going to be the trigger to downsize? Sometimes it's retiring from work. Sometimes it is your youngest has to fledge the nest, or you understand that your child is still in university and you want them to at least have graduated, like whatever it is. So what is the significant life event that is going to pull the trigger for you to make that downsizing decision? And this applies no matter what your time frame is. If this is one thing I could ask of you, is make a decision at what point, what has to happen in your life in order for downsizing to be the right decision? That's the most important question, I think. But everyone is going to answer that very differently. It's going to be unique to your circumstances. But if that is one thing that everybody could take note of, is really reminding themselves to have the conversation with their spouse, with their children, with the people in their lives, that if you see X, Y, or Z, I want you to remind me that I made a commitment at that point to downsize. Okay, well, that brings us back to my area of expertise, which is real estate. What about timing the market? Well, you'd have to be living under a rock this year not to know that the real estate market from a seller's standpoint is extremely hot. poor buyers. They are getting outbid left, right, and center. But in terms of your concern, I don't really think about the market conditions as being the primary focus of your decision making. Why not? Well, because we don't know what the future holds with real estate. Nobody has a crystal ball. And I watch the markets extremely closely. I listen to the pundits, and like so many other things in life, one says one thing, one says another. One says there's going to be a market crash. The other one says, no, it's stable and it's fine. So that can't be the decision-making basis of downsizing, because the market is what the market is. And we don't normally see things either skyrocketing or nosediving. It's more of an incremental change over time. And the overall picture for real estate is always that it gains money over enough time. So that isn't really the key part. And then plus, we tend to notice that whatever one segment of the real estate market is doing, the others are following suit. So for example, the difference between your detached house and a condo apartment, they are roughly in tandem. If you see detached houses going up, you think, wow, this is a great time to buy. But in general, condos are also going up. So it's all relative. You're a millionaire on paper, but you also have to buy in an overheated market. Does that make sense? Now, this is a really great time for me to let you know about an offer we've been extending to everyone who's been to one of our events, and that is to have a pinpoint price analysis of your home if you live in the GTA. So if you have to figure out what your house is worth as part of the overall plan, we are happy to provide that service to you free of charge. We even have a contest that I'm going to tell you about at the end. So I don't want you to feel like you're wasting my time to ask me to prepare that analysis for you, because I understand that it is one of the most important budget items to figure out is how much is this worth? It's your biggest asset. And you should know what its approximate selling price is now. So it doesn't matter as much about the market as it does that it is right for you, your family, your overall picture. Because prices are affected by complex issues like supply and demand. That's why the seller's market is so hot right now, is that there isn't enough for sale to meet demand. But there's also employment rates, interest rates, world events. None of these things are in our control. So if you're trying to do a crystal ball analysis of when you should sell the big family house, I don't necessarily think that there is a bad time, and especially not in the foreseeable future for us right now in the GTA. Look at the prices. They are sky high. If you think that 2017 was a great market for resale homes, we passed 2017 long ago. The average price now, but you see, there are just minor seasonal fluctuations. We hit the high sale mark somewhere around March, and it's been a little bit up and down since, but we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars over a period of months. This is not huge, gigantic pitches and rolls in the market. And if you look at the bars for the other years, you'll see the same thing. And that goes back to my second point, which is the market changes incrementally. It doesn't drop, it doesn't skyrocket typically. So this is really interesting to know that the prices are solid, they're strong, and likely not doing anything immediately. So if you know that your home is worth $1 million, just for round numbers, you might be thinking, okay, great, we sell the house, we've got $1 million. Maybe you have a mortgage, or maybe you have other debt you want to pay off. You've got this net proceeds, and you think, well, where are we going to go? I hear this a lot. When I actually knock on doors in my neighborhood, people say, well, great, my house is worth 1.1, but where am I going to go? And we have kind of given you some options you might not have thought about. Well, the obvious thing from a realtor's point of view is that I'm going to suggest that you sell and rebuy. Now, that could be that you buy a smaller home. That's what my parents did. And it is kind of an interim measure. You still have some of the strengths and the weaknesses of being a homeowner, some of the costs and some of the benefits. You could also take your exact same model of a home and buy it somewhere outside of the GTA and pocket the difference. And I'm going to show you the statistics for that in just a second. You could sell your home and buy a condo. Those two products have the biggest price gap between them. And I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to prove to you that with recent Toronto Real Estate Board statistics. Or you could buy a leasehold property, and we're going to come back to that. That's an interesting option. It's not for everyone, and you may not have heard about it. So let's just look at what buying and then reselling means in terms of finances and real estate. Well, if you were to have a smaller house, you are still in the real estate market. The appreciation of that house is still capital gains tax-free, and everything about it is smaller and less daunting and less expensive. But you still have a big chunk of money tied up in real estate that maybe you'd rather do other things, and you certainly haven't eliminated the maintenance and utilities and all of that, but it's been reduced. So that's option one. You buy a smaller house. Now, what about buying a condo? The great thing about condos, and I see that eventually I'll be in one, is that you can literally turn the key and go. You can travel, you can visit family, you don't have any exterior maintenance. Everything about that building is being taken care of for you, even right down to the beautiful planters outside the front lobby. So all of those things are considerations for a long-term plan, and the idea that you don't have any stairs and you're not have as many fall risks, those are also tremendous pros, and a lot of my clients do end up going into a condo. The other side of the coin though, and I know that this really sticks in the craw of a lot of my homeowners, is that they think that the condo fees are just a waste of money and that they're very expensive. And you also have to remember what it's like to live communally. We want to make sure that if you're in a building and you're a non-smoker, that you're in with other non-smokers and in that building. Or what about pets and parking, and how many rentals are in that building? These are all things we have to do our due diligence on before moving into the condo apartment. So knowing what's important to you in terms of your lifestyle is really key to deciding if you're ready for condo living. We do have a condo considerations seminar for you, so reach out. We do condo tours even, so we can help you with a lot of that decision making. Now, the other remembering point here is that all of these are condos. Condos, yes, they can be high density, skyrise buildings, but they don't have to be. They could be something much lower, smaller. Sometimes they're marketed as boutique condos where it's a low-rise building. Those are two very different types of condo apartment experiences. But condo apartments are not the only type of condo. There's also condo townhouses where the maintenance fees are much lower than a condo apartment, because you're really just usually paying for parking, the clearing of the snow and the grass. Maybe they do roof and windows, maybe not. So all of those are considerations. I really like townhouses as an interim property option, because a lot of times they are on 2 stories. So you have a sense that you're in a smaller house. You're not on top of each other. You can have your separate zones for co-living, but you don't have any of the outside maintenance, which is what a lot of people are looking to escape from. And now here's another option. This is a condo detached home. There aren't many of them. so they tend to sell quite quickly, but they have everything taken care of on the outside, but you still have complete total privacy, your own entrance, your own garage, and those are really a wonderful option. This happens to be in one of my favorite adult communities, which is called Swan Lake. I've had 2 clients in the last month move in there. They love it. The people are friendly. There's all kinds of amenities. So condos are a lifestyle option. Yes, you're paying maintenance fees, but what you're getting in return is a carefree living and a community and amenities. So there are pluses and minuses. They're not for everyone, but I think they are an interesting option also because of the price point. So I just want to show you another option is that you could possibly sell your home and then be a renter, be a tenant. Now, I know this really also goes against the way many of us were raised, that we don't want to be a tenant. We want to be a homeowner, but there are different types of rental accommodations or leased accommodations. One of them being a private home or residence or condo where somebody else owns it as a small investor and they rent you that property. So that's one option. The other option could be that you are in a purpose-built rental building. They're really tough to come by. And like we've been hearing in the news lately, politicians are talking a lot about rental buildings and affordable housing, but the problem is that they just haven't been keeping pace with the growth. So even though our population has doubled and tripled since the 70s, there's still not very many buildings for renting being built. So we haven't been keeping pace with that level of growth. So the other option is to lease a suite in something like a seniors retirement residence. And I know there's been a lot of controversy this year about them. I've been into several of them. I've taken tours, I've had lunches, and I'm going to tell you, it's like living on a cruise ship. And part of me really can't wait. The average age tends to be older because the thing you are giving up in these retirement communities is the ability to cook your own meals. Now, if you have been cooking for 50 years and that's not a big hardship, then you get to dine on white tablecloths and have your meals prepared for you. I think it has a great appeal, but I understand that not everyone feels the same way. So these are all rental options, lease options. And there are some advantages and disadvantages, some pros and cons. Well, one of the best being that you know your costs. And if anything happens to your property, you have a landlord to call. The furnace goes on the fritz, or the dishwasher backs up. Not your problem. The cons of this option here is that there isn't as much selection. You lose your principal residence capital gains tax exemption. So whatever you take the money and put it into is now generating income that you could be taxed for. So I am not an expert in that department. I encourage you to speak to your financial planner. But the other thing is, I would say a big pro to this option of leasing that isn't included on this list is that you could start with your estate planning, so that your if you had a property and you were to pass away, it would go into probate, and that can be costly and take a long time to clear the courts, and something that you wouldn't really want for your children or your estate to have to deal with. It's really troublesome. And so to have all of that taken care of and to be in rental accommodations as you are older has a lot of merit from that standpoint. So let's look. What makes financial sense? Well, besides losing control, the Sterling generation is very concerned about outliving their money, and rightfully so. we've seen in the last 20, 30 years a decline in the number of company supplied pensions. And so the house that you are living in could very well be your biggest investment for retirement. And you want to make sure that you are working with those assets, those funds, in a way that is responsible and future thinking. So let's have a look. We have to think of where we are in the retirement cycle. Now, this is taken from a financial document that I think is pretty accurate, that when we first retire, there's just so many things we want to do that actually our costs could increase. Because you're not at work, you might be spending more money. You might actually have the time to do the things that are costly, or decide that this is the time you want to do a major house renovation or purchase a secondary vacation property or whatever it is. So typically we see in the early phases of retirement, the go-go years, costs increase. But as we age, that tends to diminish, and the idea of a long flight to Hawaii isn't quite as appealing. The overall number of trips or number of golf vacations you take can start to slow down, and your spending actually diminishes. But then, if you are someone who ends up requiring a lot of medical care or personal assistance or in-home services, you can see that as you get older, your expenses could actually rise again. So if you are making a decision and you're somewhere in this phase here, we have to make sure that the money is there for the future. And your house can definitely be part of that plan. There isn't one right answer. It has to reflect the age and stage that you are in and what you want to do in the future. And not trying to be morbid, but how long do you plan to live? Because we don't want to outlive our money, that's for sure. So again, with the financial consideration, we can see that the cycle of expenses rises and falls, and we want to prepare perhaps by even taking our house and moving out of the GTA. This was one of the options we had talked about earlier. And this is actually pulled from the Toronto Real Estate Board today. I updated it right today so that you would have breaking news. You would have relevant, up-to-date information that you can see that in York Region, and it's even higher in the Toronto area, the average home, 3 or 4 bedroom detached home, say 2,100 square feet, 2.5 bath, 50 by 110 lot. The average price in York Region is 1.57 million. Well, back it up. Where the average price in Durham Region is 1.03 million for the exact same property parameters. I actually just pulled that same thing, 3 or 4 bedrooms, 2,100 square feet, 2.5 bath, 50 by 110 lot. Just by taking your house and going west or east or north, you could make yourself $500,000 in the difference between those two purchases. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? There are some new communities that I've been visiting with buyers that are really affordable, really. And if you are not tethered to York Region or the GTA, this could possibly be a great way to increase that nest egg for retirement. Oh, and now here is the other consideration, is that you could stay in your very same neighborhood. You could stay in York Region if that's where you're watching us from, but just change property categories. And you can see the dramatic difference between the average detached home in the 905 and the average condo. So this is entirely just by averages of all the sales prices in July, the average sale price in July for an average home in the 905 was $1.3 million, where the average condo sale in July was $589,000. The difference between those two average sale prices is $756,624. That's astounding. If I was to come to you and knock on your door and hand you a check for $750,000, like, you know, the Publishers Clearinghouse, you would be jumping up and down for joy. Well, you have that potential locked up in the bricks and mortar of your house. So by changing categories but staying in the same area, you can also realize that equity. You can get that equity that you've been building out of your house. Now, imagine, oh my gosh, this would be the next one, is to take the average detached house in York Region and purchase a condo in Durham. Wow. So there's just lots of ways lots of combinations that you can consider. And I hope that I've given you some new information and some things to ponder. I have a lot of my clients who recently have been retiring down to St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, Welland, all of that area. And it's beautiful. And the winters are easier. And then a fair number who are out east, Trenton, Belleville, Prince Edward County, another affordable pocket, especially when you look at what your house might be selling for. Again, this is a great time to ask, what's my house worth? So that you know what you can spend. It's like your budget, right? So if you have a $1.3 million house and you want $500,000 left over, that is very doable in today's real estate market. Now, this is where we just bring it all home. And don't worry, we will be sending you a link for this presentation. You don't have to scribble this down madly now, but this is really all that we have been covering since we began last week, adding on to it now more. And really, number 9 and number 10, I would say, are the things that I am most passionate about, is that you have the conversations, that you start the plan, even if it's just broad strokes, even if it's just a rough sketch, just to know where you want to go, what kind of property you want to live in, and what it will take to pull the trigger so that you actually make that move. Okay, so this is something you can print off for yourself. You could use it as the talking points for a family conversation, and really identifying what your goal is. So I love this quote. My final thought here is, we were never meant to live life accumulating stuff. We were meant to live simply enjoying the experiences of life, the people of life, and the journey of life, not the things of life. I think that's powerful. And I hope it's motivational for you as well. Now, I told you to stay tuned. We have a special offer. It's just about here. But here are some of the upcoming online seminars that we will be holding. These are workshops where we have an accompanying workbook that we can send you, lots of great resources to follow up with. Especially this one is a very popular one, and this is about our decluttering battle plan. And then again, for people who are 12 to 24 months away, not sure what they should be doing to improve their house to get the maximum value when it's time to sell, these are all here for you as well. You can sign up the same way you signed up to be with me today, and it would be our great pleasure to have you back. I really like both of these seminars that are coming up because they're very practical. Today, we've been talking about practical issues as well, but it's part of a bigger plan. And now we get into some real specifics about how you can create an action plan for yourself. We've got the resources for you, we've got the tools for you, and we'd love to come alongside you, journey with you as you figure things out. And that's a great privilege that we have. So this is what I wanted to tell you about. We have this great picnic backpack. It comes with a bottle of our own specially branded wine. We will be giving you a gas card and a grocery card, and best of all, you will know exactly what your home is worth. So we will ask you to sign up, to register, and as soon as you do, your name will be entered into a draw for this giveaway. So the backpack and the gift cards and the wine and everything is worth about $200. And then we figure that the normal thing for a price evaluation on a property, we usually charge about $250 for that. So it's a pretty good prize pack, and we hope that you'll take advantage of this offer to get yourself thinking about the market value of your properties. It's a big deal. So there we go. And if you would like to find out more about what we do, who we are, I encourage you to follow us on Facebook. You can seek us out on Instagram or LinkedIn. And then, of course, also our website. And that's a great place to find out what's coming up or to communicate with us. But we are always interested in your questions and being of specific help to your unique circumstances. That's why we called the company S.M.A.R.T Realty Solutions. It's something that we love doing, is overcoming those problems and helping you brainstorm solutions for your situation and working together, a partnership. It's very, very gratifying for us. So if you have any questions right now, we welcome those. There's a chat box where you can type them in, or if you want to unmute yourself, or if you want to text me. Those are all options. We do have a few minutes left. You can let me know. I'm happy to hear from you. Well, okay, we're going to presume there are not any questions at this moment. If you think of them afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out. We will be happy to schedule a time where we can talk. And I really want to thank you today for being here, for joining us. I hope you found it a useful 45 minutes or an hour, and that you have some food for thought, some things to ponder. And I say thank you. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you in our future events. Don't forget to reach out for your pinpoint price analysis. Okay? Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.